Wesley, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you on. Looking forward to this discussion today.
Thanks, Brian. Happy to be here.
So, before we get into the topics today, this could go anywhere. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate for sure and just business in general, entrepreneurship in general. Give the listener some context as to how you got to this point of, real estate investor, business owner. What were you doing before that? And maybe talk about some of the steps that you took or some of the efforts that you made to be in business. Maybe it didn't work out. Give us some stuff.
Oh, so background, as you can see a little bit behind me, tells a little bit of the story. So I did start off my life doing 9 years in the Marine Corps, got out to be full-time dad, which was a huge change. Went through engineering school and was about to go to work for Amazon. And then I started going to some real estate networking events because I was sitting there on my couch, tired of being sick and tired, or should I say sick and tired of being tired. And I wanted to figure out what's different. Why is it that I'm broke and why is it that other people are rich or wealthy? So I really started researching a lot about how the wealthy live, how the rich live, how they make their decisions. And I kind of did a full scope of down to almost as if I was going to war with them. I mean, I wanted to know where they eat, where they slept, what books they read, where they spent their time, where they spent their money. And, of course, that's what kind of led me into looking at real estate.
Yeah.
And it's back in 2019 when I made my official, launch into it. Started off doing actually syndication for apartments. I knew nothing. So I got a phone call. Some people had heard about me just from going to networking events. And I was driving 2 hours one way just for the closest networking event. So I would try to make the most of it all day, just networking all day and then come home late at night. They got exhausting fast, but I learned a lot in a short period of time just for being in the right rooms. And someone finally called me and, wanted me to join their team. And they're like, just drive out tomorrow. We got a great event. There's plenty of people in the room for you to talk to. So I showed up and they're like, all right, the room is full of investors. Go talk. I was like, oh, okay, cool. What are we doing? They were like, we're going to do apartments. Awesome. So I knew as much about an apartment from my time living in one. That's about the equivalent of what I knew. So I walked up to the first group and asked them what they did. All of them were looking for an investment, just so happened to be in apartments. So when they asked me, well, what do you do? Oh, we're raising money to purchase apartments. Oh, cool. What's your cash on cash? What's your IRR? What's your da-da-da? All these foreign acronyms. And I kind of reverted back to the time in the Marine Corps where a good leader never says, I don't know. They say, I'll get you the answers. So I did exactly that, pulled an old tool out of an old toolbox. And I said exactly that. Those are great questions. Mm-hmm. I knew they were great. At least I hoped, because I didn't know what they were talking about. So I figured, okay, those are good answers. Those are good questions. I'd love a way to get you the right answers. We're a little early in our process. If you have a way that I can get a hold of you when we have more of our numbers dialed in, I'd love to be able to get you those. Oh, thank you very much. Got all those cards and went back over to the table of, okay, where are we at with this? What does this mean? What does this mean? So when I say you don't have to know all the answers, you can literally not know all the answers. But that really did highlight to me how little I knew, which made me just soak up as much knowledge as I could for that. And I always was making progress while I was studying. So I didn't want to get stuck in this analysis paralysis, but at the same time, I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself and not know what I was doing. That really kind of jump-started really everything into that of the world of real estate for me and kind of where I came from, of having no background, coming from a more poor and humble beginnings into where I'm at now.
So a couple of things that jumped off at me, which I don't know if there's a thing to it or not, but there's a lot of engineers who become real estate investors. Do you find that to be true? It seems, maybe it's the analytical side of things, but it seems to be very common. And would you agree?
Yeah. Engineers, IT, those are doctors. I think it's those people that have that. They have a curiosity to figuring out how things work. That's what I think the commonality is that I see across most other of those common, I would say, W-2s that are entrepreneurs is that curiosity of figuring out how things work.
Yeah. Not a requirement per se, but it just seems to be a commonality that I do see. I also love what you said about, for lack of a better phrase, you were not letting your lack of knowledge prevent you from getting into the weeds, if you will, and starting to take action. I was very interested to hear how you were going to answer that question. And that would paralyze most people. Just the thought of, hey, what if people ask me questions, which they
Mm.
are? You didn't have the answer and you said what you said, which was wonderful. And they accepted it. Okay, talk about your first deal then.
My first deal, you got to fast forward 18 months.
All right.
So I almost quit a few times, went on 3 different teams, and then finally said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way, and started my own. So I put together my own team, and took us a few months. But the first year of owning my own company and running my team, we closed on a little over 70 million worth of multifamily. So my very first real estate deal was a $4.5 million apartment in West Texas. A lot of sprinting until you fall on your face and you slide a little bit, and then you dust that off, learn from it, and then got to find the courage to take off again.
Yeah.
Learning each time. I learned the lesson of it's less painful to learn from someone else's mistakes than to have to make it yourself, but it's more impactful when you make that mistake and have to learn directly. So
that's right. Okay. I want to give the listeners a timeline here, because many people get involved in real estate and they think they're just going to light it up from day one, right? How long between the time that you said, hey, I'm going to start networking and give this thing a go, and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, to you closing that first $4.5 million deal? How long was that?
So I'll give you a timeline. 2019, around February, I started networking. July of 2019, I got introduced to syndication and invited to the team.
Yep.
March or May of 2021, I closed my first deal.
Let's call it 2 years, right? 2 years from your first activities, and then you close on a 4.5. How many units was that?
119.
119. Okay. A lot of people think that they got to go. I want to ask you about that deal, how you found it, how you sourced it, and just, lessons that you can share. But a lot of people think that, hey, you got to kind of climb this ladder, right? Like, I'll do a little bit of wholesaling, and then I'll go into I'll go into single family. Maybe I'll do some rehabs, and then I'll graduate to larger units like multifamily and self-storage. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it is smart to do it that way, but I also think you got to understand where you're coming from and where you're wanting to end up, and know your strengths and more importantly, know your weaknesses. Wholesaling, I dabbled at wholesaling. I failed at it. I picked up a lot of great skill sets that I applied in other aspects of my career, even today.
Yep.
Multifamily, I don't like. I won't touch multifamily. Even after all of that, I dang near just walked away from it and gave it up. I don't like multifamily. I don't like tenants. It took getting into that to realize it. So it's hard to say you're going to have all the answers before you start. Know what you want, strategize how you're going to get it, and most importantly, be flexible, because you don't know what's on the other side of that door. And sometimes it takes actually being in a bad situation, or even being in a good situation, but not the right fit for you, before you realize that there's other aspects and there's other strategies that you could pursue instead.
I think a lot of people don't realize that when first of all, what you said about having all the answers before you start. I still know people that are still looking for all the answers, and then I'll talk to them in 10 years and they still won't start. So very important that you said that. I really want to highlight that, because there's no possible way for you to have all the answers. Like, you didn't know that you weren't going to like tenants. Maybe somebody told you, hey, this isn't. I had to find that out for myself too, Wesley. That was a part of real estate that I just didn't like. Even if I was doing everything right and they were 100% wrong, I just didn't want to be involved in it, period. It wasn't a good feeling for me. It didn't sit well with me. And then I had people telling me, well, that's just part of the business. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be in that business. Mm-hmm. Sounds like we have some alignment there, but having all the answers is just not possible. You're never going to have them all. You said, hey, you're always learning, you're always growing. it's who you're trying to become. So important message, a lot of great insight there. You pivoted away from syndications or from multifamily, from apartments. I'm not going to ask you about that. So what do you like now?
Storage.
All right.
So
Self-storage.
no tenants, no toilets. There you go.
Talk about why you love that model over multifamily.
Well, there's a bigger agenda there for me. I do want to kind of get back to the veteran community, and I wanted to develop basically apartments for homeless veterans. So if I was going to manage tenants, I wanted to kind of be for a purpose.
Yep.
One of the reasons why I got a multifamily is I did a lot of heavy value add, buying almost class D and trying to bring it up as much as you can, class C, trying to bring it up as much as you can. And, ultimately, what do they call it? Gentrification. And when you're touring some of the way how these low income lives, I saw my father in one of the tenants, and I knew what I was doing. I knew I was going to buy this apartment. I knew I was going to throw, 10 to 15 grand into that unit. And then I was going to raise that rent. Yes, it's a better living condition, but that man can't afford it. So he's going to have to move somewhere else. And it hurt me in a weird way. And like you said, a lot of people, that's just part of it. You're putting money into it. You got to get money out of it. It's just business. I understand it, not arguing with it, but it's hard. I mean, we're going through a very hard economy right now. And I think a lot of families are feeling it at their wallet, of what does it cost to live? And imagine someone going, hey, I'm going to raise your rent now because my cost of living raised too. So it's hard times. So I kind of was like, well, I'd love to come back to that. I want to learn how to develop. I don't want to go full fledged and bite off more than I can chew and start developing straight up multifamily. Mm-hmm. So I found an asset class, looked at RV parks, looked at self-storage, looked at a few other things. And then self-storage really started clicking for me. You're not living with a tenant. It's a need-based, it's a want-based, not a need-based, right? So it's people that have the extra that need space that, their garages are already full. Or they're living in an apartment and they can't afford the extra space, so they got to rent the storage. And then I just fell in love with it. I love the industry. There's a lot of gurus in multifamily, in my opinion. A lot of people that just sell you this dream and that's all it is. I mean, when you really wake up, you realize, oh man, this is dirty. There's a lot more people that have done a lot of big things. I mean, I've sat down, I've had the fortunate opportunity to sit down with VPs of CubeSmart and Prime Storage and, a lot of other big private equity groups and talk man to man before I even owned anything of storage. But they saw the potential. They saw my business plan. I had to earn the right in the room. And it was nice to not have to upsell every aspect of what you were doing. It was just down to the numbers make sense. The strategy makes sense. The partnership makes sense. Let's do a deal.
Nice. And have you bought any existing self-storage facilities?
Not yet. We are planning on doing that and just expanding.
Yeah.
So looking at that. So we'll still have a development construction component to our overall strategy.
Not everyone's going to jump right into development. Some of the people listening, a lot of the people listening are interested in self-storage, acquiring self-storage. Here's what I hear a lot, and I want you to give your expert opinion on this. It's a saturated market. There's too many people doing it. That's the first one. Saturated market. Is that true or not?
It depends if you're the fish or if you're the shark. If you're the shark, you want a saturated pool. Why? You got plenty of things to eat. If you're a fish, find a small pond first. Find the unsaturated. But to look at it, supply and demand is the basis of any economy. You can measure it by square foot per capita. So it's even easier to measure. So go where there's the demand. The average, just to shoot off some numbers, what I mean by that.
Yep.
The average in the nation demand is I think it's like 6.3 right now, 6.3 square foot of rentable storage per person. That's what the basis of square foot per capita is. Mm-hmm. So if you find a plot of land, we usually will go anywhere from 3 to 5 miles, depending on the density, and look at that and go. I've managed to find a piece of land in DFW that the square foot per capita is under a 4. Plenty of demand. I found a location in San Antonio that's under a 4. So I've found several spots in Houston. If you know what to look for, you have a higher chance of finding it. So first things first, know what you're looking for. Know what the basis of that even, oh, it's saturated. What are you basing that off of?
Yeah. Probably
So
just a bunch of people on social media talking about it. It would be my opinion.
yeah. And you know what? I'll sit here and say, yeah, it's saturated if I don't want the competition.
Right. Right.
So,
Talk about those numbers a little bit more in depth, because again, you and I take this stuff for granted. There's people out there driving that don't know what you just talked about with the square foot, per square foot, 6.3. And then you said, hey, I found a 4. So just dig a little bit deeper into that one, because I know they're going to have questions.
Yeah. So when you look at the demand versus the supply and current supply, as well as what's in motion, especially development, and even if you're looking at buying something existing, it's important to know these numbers too, so that you'll know how hard is it going to be to keep my occupancy where it is? How competitive can I be with my rates compared to, if I'm the class is still, you're A, B, C, based on the grade of your property.
Yep.
Of where you can compete with some of the REITs, some of the other, managers in the area, your competition. But one of the things to look at is that how much is there versus how much is based on the averages staying that's needed. You can look at the other occupancies of the other facilities and you see, okay, everyone's above 90. Okay, cool. If I'm buying an existing, what's mine at? If it's below 90, might be a management issue, might be the rates are too high. But then pull a market report and you can pay $20 for an hour on Radius Plus and research it. And it'll show you 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile. And you can see what is that. It'll do the calculation for you, literally tell you on the screen, square foot per capita, 4.3, 5 point, whatever. And then sometimes it'll even show you if permits have already been pulled for any new facilities. So it won't just give you that based on what's existing, but what's to come. And that's important to know. So I would say that's really going to dictate how likely it is for you to accomplish your goals of keeping your, either leasing up or stay, above that 90, and then what rates you're going to be able to get.
Awesome. Okay. And you said that some of these facilities, it's a management issue, right? So maybe talk about some of the examples. Are these like mom and pop owners that are just maybe not neglecting it? Maybe their kids don't want it. Like, talk about what some of those situations might look like and how
I would say
take advantage of it.
Yeah. I mean, this really goes industry wide though. Like it doesn't, I would say real estate wide management is always going to come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say always take the time to pick your management right. Don't be afraid to fire them if they miss the mark for you. So always have a slew of property managers. I have a whole section in my database is just property managers. Luckily with storage is you can work with some of the bigger names. We like to work with CubeSmart and we like to work with another company called Argus. Love both of those. They're very sophisticated. They're already managing several hundred doors already. So usually we'll kind of go with both of those and see who's more familiar with this market and then also get their take on how that goes. So management is a key play. So if you've got something that's already existing, most of those bigger, more sophisticated management companies like to stay above 40,000 net rentable square feet, which means how much space you can actually rent out. But if you have something smaller, there's a lot of AI coming. There's a lot of more, I would say smaller groups that are willing to step in and manage these things, very sophisticated and very remote. Being surprised how remote you can run these facilities now. So if it is just a mismanagement, just like any asset, you really got to be able to judge that. And a lot of the way it is comparison to the neighbors. What are they doing differently over here? And then if you're talking direct to the seller, talk with them, truly talk with them. How is life? What are things going? How long have you had this? What are y'all looking to do? Why are you looking to sell? Get more of the behind the scenes of that one question. Why are you looking to sell? Can probably give you an insight on whether or not that's a management issue. If they're just like, we're just tired of it. We're old, we're ready to retire. All of our kids have moved away. They got grandkids. We want to spend more time with our grandkids. There you go. They've let it slip because their passion is no longer in that project. It's in something else. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So, and then that's when you would know how to come in and have the right tools and have the right strategies. And if you don't have the experience managing one of those, there's plenty of people out there. I mean, you can go down Facebook group and find them all day long and find some people and vet them out and ask about it. I mean, self-storage is a smaller community for sure, but find out, hey, who's a good one to do this? Who's a good one to do this size? You know, ask about location, ask about the type and the size. Like what I mean by type, is it a multi-story or is it a single story? Is it boat and RV storage? Is it non-climate, your traditional self-storage where you just got all the external doors? Know what that is. And then that way the size is really going to dictate who's going to be the right fit. And are you just doing one or are you going to be doing several?
Wow. My head's spinning here, Wesley. So there's, other than your brain, right? Is there maybe some resources or tools that you would give someone? Because there's a lot to learn here on how maybe they can start to at least learn this stuff and these metrics and all the stuff that you talk about. Is there somewhere that you went to learn all of this that you could maybe share? Sounds like you should be teaching this stuff too.
Don't tip me with that. No, I try to do a lot of free stuff on that. You know, our website will have, every once in a while we'll open up what we call an apprenticeship program. I don't want to sell the knowledge. I'd rather bring you in on my team, teach you exactly how I'm doing it, and then try to plug you in. Ultimately, my goal would be to where you're managing your own portfolio under a big umbrella of us. But there's a lot of great groups out there. One of my old partners and one of the guys that really helped me get started in storage is a gentleman by the name of Anthony Krupa. He's got a Facebook group. He's got a great free weekly live that they go over all kinds of stuff, and you can plug into a lot of great people there. But I would just say plug into a wide range of connections and sources. So that way you can almost fact check and cross that. Okay, you know, learn something over. This is what I used to do. I learned something over here, and then I would go and present it to another group as if it was an idea of discussion. Then it was funny because they gave me credit for knowing it when I'm just like regurgitating it. Yeah. But then I wanted to hear everyone else in this audience, how they pick that apart, put it back together and get that. So I had a wide variety and I would almost do it back and forth. So I had about 4 or 5 groups that I would just bounce from and have one idea from one that I learned from this and took my spin on it and said, okay, this is how my mind perceived this. Let me present it in this group, learn a different perspective of it. And then maybe hear some more new topics, take that. And then it's it. So it's like cross collaboration of education. Yeah. It's hard to say 3 times fast. So
it's hard to say one time fast, but yeah. And folks, for all you, we'll find that, we'll find Anthony Krupa's Facebook group and we'll post it in the notes for you so you don't have to go searching around for it. Wesley, this has been awesome. I mean, we could talk all day about real estate and self-storage, and you obviously have a vast knowledge on what you're doing. Sounds like you got a lot of cool stuff coming up here. But I want to really just kind of hone in and talk to the people who, and there's a lot of them listening, who haven't done anything, right? Maybe they've read some books. Maybe they read the Purple Book. Who knows what they read? They're in that education phase. They think they got to know all the answers, and they are definitely sick and tired of being sick and tired. They got family, they got kids. What's maybe something that you would say to them, a piece of advice or a comment or two, to maybe get them from that stage of being stuck to getting closer to where they would like to go, where they dream about going?
Try to figure out why you don't feel confident enough to start. And if it simply just really boils down to the education aspect, let me just say this. You'll never know everything. The market you're studying today will be different next year. So if you're studying everything for now, its timing is of the essence. You're building strategies and you're learning strategies, but 2008 was a different market than 2020, even though they compare a lot of those together. Be confident in you, learn new strategies daily, have good resources, have a good network, never stop moving forward. Learning is moving forward, but you have to be in deals to truly learn how to maximize your efforts. You can only learn so much from a book. it sometimes takes getting cut a few times to truly learn the lesson that a saw is sharp. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you think that you're going to figure out a way to where you can't fail, you're never going to get in. And if you do think that, you're wrong. I'm going to tell you that right now. You can't be scared of failure. You must hope for it. If you really want to be an entrepreneur and you really want to be successful, whatever that means to you, it's on the other side of failure. You have to fail because there's growth in that. And if you really want to learn something, get after it and fail a few times. Because I want to tell one story that really stuck out to me is why I was okay failing. They did this. I think it was some one of those Ivy League schools. I have to go back and find the article and the report. But professor basically he broke up the class into two groups. One half of the group, he said, I want you to make this pot, little clay pot. I want you to make one, but I want you to make it the perfect one. You're not allowed to start over. If you break it, you got to remold that one perfect one. This group over here, I want y'all to perfect how many pots you can make. I want you to make as many pots as you can. Set that up. I want to see your processes. I want to see that. Come back in 30 days. In 30 days, the group that just wanted to make one, that was tasked to make one perfect pot, wasn't even close to the best pot that was made in that 30-day pan. The group over here that tried, failed, got better, tweaked, failed, tweaked, tweaked. There's growth through frequency and through that failure. You have to try certain things firsthand to even learn sometimes why they didn't work. Now, granted, you can always research other ways to see, oh, they tried that already and failed, but then go one step further and go, why? Like I said, the curiosity, how things work, that's the commonality. So even if you're not an engineer in IT, you're just a blue collar man working hand to mouth, figure out why things work the way they work. Like I said, I didn't even know real estate when I started.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. When I started, I was making $24,000 a year. I had a little 4-year-old daughter, no support with that. That was just me putting myself through engineering school. We lived in a 2-bedroom, little bitty house. My bedroom, the roof was caved in because I had a slumlord. So I slept on the couch and gave my daughter the only good room. I knew nothing and I had access to no one. And I still figured it out. But if I would have ever stayed, I gave myself 36 hours without sleep to research everything I needed to know. And then I had to ask myself, how do I take that action? I had to base it on some kind of grading criteria. Was that the right step for me? And this is what it boiled down to. And I'll leave you with this if this is the end. 1, I learned that rich people buy time, poor people sell it. So the greatest commodity that you have to spend is your time. So make sure where you spend your time, you're getting a return on it. I've started asking my kids lately, what was your return on your time? Was it happiness? Was it knowledge? Was it currency? Profit? What? As long as you know what it was, you're ready. You make that decision. And if you feel that's positive. The other one, this one is what I feel is the growth. This is my compounding check. Does everybody win? Because if everybody wins, they're going to want to come back and do it again. So if you're getting a return on your time and everybody's winning, you're on the right path. Whether you fail at something, lose at something, or successful and profitable beyond all measure and all expectation, what's your return on your time? Did everybody win? And I will tell you, you will start to see results. And they're not instant. I've been at this for 5 years and I still don't feel like I've done anything. Other people tell me all the time, no, you've done a lot, but my measure is high and my standard is high. So I don't stop moving forward, but I always remind myself, what is the return on my time here? And does everyone get to win so that I know if we are successful, we can do this again. So you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have confidence in yourself. And if that's the doubt, well, the only way you're going to get confidence is getting your hands dirty and getting in a deal, because that's where you will really start to learn far beyond a book, far beyond an article, far beyond a podcast. These help lay the foundation. What really builds the house, your asset, your portfolio on top of that is your action. Foundation, education, growth, vertical, house, that's your action. So if you don't have anything to show for in your portfolio, it's your fault.
Nailed it. Totally nailed it. Thank you. Before we wrap up, where can we go to learn more about you and about what you're doing?
Sure. We are going through a rebranding right now,
Mhm.
but I would say we'll keep it the same no matter what. militarypatriotsgroup.com is our website. We're going to start putting some articles on there. I want to start putting some insights on there, but we'll occasionally do a lot of, free education, free promotions, and then try to lead people the right direction. We will partner with people from time to time. If anyone's looking to learn more or check out more and see all my failures up to this point, feel free to check it out. And then I think you can link just about everything on that, our LinkedIn, our Facebook, all of that through our website.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your losses. There's too many people telling all the good stuff, and you had an equal amount, if not more, on the failure side. So people need to hear that. It's encouraging. Wesley, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. I look forward to having you back on the show, everyone. Make it an awesome day.